Yeah, so once more, welcome to our August webinar. So I'm just going to begin with some housekeeping. Um, so first of all, today's session is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants later this week. So if you would like to share this recording with your colleague who wasn't able to attend, or if you would like to revisit any of the content covered in today's session, you can. A copy of the slides and the Q&A will also be sent to all registrants next week. The audio for this session is available through your computer speakers or by dialing in by phone. If you experience poor sound quality at any time through your computer speakers, you may wish to try dialing into the session by phone instead. This can be done by accessing your device settings at the top of your screen within the Teams session. Click the three dots for more settings, then select device settings, and a device setting area will open on your right-hand side. So participants will remain muted throughout the session. However, there is a chat area which can also be accessed via the top of your screen within Teams. We will be monitoring this throughout the session, so please submit any questions or comments you may have at any time. There's also going to be a Q&A at the end of the session. So our presenters for today. So as always, you're joined by me. I'm Stephen, Customer Support Advisor here at CLA, and Imogen, our Senior Product Manager. We're also happy to be joined by Joanne Cox from the British Library, who is the Key Account and Business Supply Manager. And let's move to our agenda today. So first, we're going to have the British Library view on EHESS. Then Imogen will take us through our DCS update. And at the end, we're going to have an open Q&A. So first, the British Library's view. So over to you, Joanne.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Jo Cox, the Key Account and Business Support Manager at the British Library, based in Boston Spa and Customer Services. I recognise a few names that are on the call, so you probably do already know me. I'm just going to spend a few minutes sort of giving you a quick update on the British Library after the cyber attack, and also why it took us so long to bring EHESS back, some of the trials and tribulations that we've had, and then just a little bit, you will probably know most of it, but just what the EHESS service looks like now, some of the limitations that we've got, and what we're hoping to do going forward. So just on the cyber attack, as you are all, I am sure, only too well aware, we suffered a cyber attack last October. The attackers came in and they did three things. They stole the data, they encrypted any remaining data, and then they destroyed some of the servers to inhibit system recovery and to basically cover their tracks. Although we are confident that our data, digital holdings and digitised collections are safe and intact, either through backups or because they were not targeted in the attack, many of our legacy IT systems were encrypted or damaged and deleted. Our major software systems that you will have used for these systems cannot be brought back in their pre-attack form, either because they are no longer supported by the vendor or because they will not function on the new secure infrastructure that is currently being rolled out within the library, which is why it's taken us so long to bring back some of the systems. So in December last year, the library began the transition from crisis response to recovery with our new Rebuild and Renew programme. So this will enable the restoration of services and complete the renewal of our technological infrastructure. Alongside this programme, we're also working to modernise our library service. This was already underway as part of the Knowledge Matters strategy, but what was a 5-year plan is now an 18-month plan. With acceleration for renewing the technology restructure. So the first part of that was respond. So that was the immediate crisis sort of between October and December. This looked at the immediate issues that we were facing, which was the data theft, protect against further immediate attacks, and to return some of the basic services. And when I talk about basic services, I'm talking basic things like Wi-Fi and email. And then in December, we began to transition from that crisis response to look at recovery. The adapt phase, it's a 6-month phase to identify and implement interim solutions to restore those services, internal processes and partnerships. And this is the phase we are now in. So within the adapt phase, we're looking to work on any interim solutions that can be delivered without any significant input from our technology team, as they're pretty busy at the minute trying to get everything back online. So this adapt phase ensures a consistent pipeline of improvements, however small, throughout this sort of 6 months duration. And so far this included things like the introduction of our interim catalogue, which I know is not perfect, but it's more than we had before. Enhanced reader registration. We've also reintroduced the link van to get material between London and Boston Spa. In January, as most of you know, we brought back a very manual document supply service. Unfortunately, because of the manual thing, this is currently only limited to library privilege copies and loans to UK addresses. We have made a change to the way that we process loans on that service. So the loan period is now 12 weeks with no renewals. And this is due to the manual aspect of processing. We just couldn't offer a renewal process. And it also falls in line with our collection security. Collection are quite keen, obviously, to make sure we know where everything is when we don't have the automated systems. EHESS was one of our major things, and also ILOL claims, which was another thing that I know affected the HE community, which we brought back in July. And then finally, we're on to the renew. So the renew has run throughout the whole process. We have a board, and this is to create a new sort of resilient infrastructure to deliver permanent solutions, either by upgrading or adapting existing systems or delivering new ones where necessary. Although the cyber attack has been absolutely devastating to the BL and to everybody else, it is an opportunity to have a fresh start. So the renew bit of the programme is working with the Modern Library Services programme to transform the British Library into a more secure, resilient and innovative institution, seizing the opportunity to build back with greater resilience in the aftermath of the attack. And I know a lot of you have been involved in some of the discussions about what the future should look like and where we fit into the current ILL thing. So EHESS, we know sort of from the emails that customer services have been getting in, EHESS and ILL claims were two of the really important things that we needed to bring back once we brought back things. So it took us quite a while to bring back the traditional services, as we don't have any of the old systems, any of the old automated systems, and everything is manual. So there has been a delay. We've had to create a new manual process for both document supply and EHESS, as I say, we don't have any of the automated processes we used to have. The biggest problem was when we had the attack, all our scanners, printers, everything that was networked went offline. So we've had to wait quite a long time for our technology team to be confident that we can put that those things back onto and use them. So we've had to wait for the scanners to produce a high quality service. We've also needed to wait for software such as Abifine for the OCR. So once this was in place, this is when we began the discussions with the CLA to bring back the process. So we could bring back document supply relatively early compared to EHESS, because we didn't need the OCR and we didn't need the high quality, so we could do it on other things. And then the other stumbling block to bring back EHESS was copyright. As I already mentioned, the document supply service that was started in January is only for library privileged copies. And we have to find a way to process those copyright free copies. The restrictions on the catalogue, the interim catalogue that was put up, it means it's not being updated regularly. So we have no way of displaying those copyright fees for you to know exactly what it is that you are going to be paying, which is obviously a problem. So again, we've had to work with the CLA to come up with a system where we can charge that copyright, charge you the right fee, and also make sure obviously that we're reporting and paying that back to the right people. So we have developed a process for both document supply and EHESS. We've developed a process for both DCS and other EHESS other users. And it's basically, as I say, very manual. It's about emailing into the British Library with an email that includes your EHESS customer code. We need to know whether it's outsourced or a copyright fee paid request. We need the full bibliographic details to include the sort of journal, book title, year, volume, page, etc., plus the ISSN or ISBN and a delivery address, which we've now got set up. Due to the manual processes, we are unable to complete the requests in the 48-hour turnaround time that we used to have. It's just impossible with all the checking that we have to do for the copyright and to make sure we've got the item in stock. But we do aim to complete the requests within 4 working days. I am aware that in some instances this has slipped. It will depend on where the item is held within the library and also demand, because we sort of initially had quite a high demand. It has taken us a little bit longer in some instances, but we are working towards that 4-day turnaround. Because we can't display the copyright fees, and we've got to check quite a few files to ensure compliance, we have set, along with the CLA, a max cost of £40. When we check and the copyright fee is £40 or under, we will just process that request. If it is greater than that, then we will contact you. If you accept the fee, fine, we will just continue to process the request as possible. If not, we will just cancel it. If you use a DCS, then all the correspondence, I believe, is coming through them, which is fine. If not, you can chase or cancel by emailing the British Library. Cancellations, unfortunately, can only be acted on if that cancellation is made within 24 hours of placing the request. Again, this is down to the manual processes. The request disappears up in storage areas, and it's very difficult for us then to stop that request being processed. So we do ask that any cancellations are done within the first 24 hours. In terms of licenses, we do have restrictions on licenses that we can use for the copyright fee paid service. It is just worth pointing out at this point that even if the CLA permissions checker gives you permission to use a document, that does differ from the permissions we have from publishers to process copyright fee paid requests. But I understand that we'll be covering that a little bit later on with Imogen. We also have territory restrictions, which means we're not able to provide some content on the copyright fee paid systems because we don't have the correct licenses with those territories. So there are some, so you will see sort of some more failures coming back for because we don't have a license to process it. Unfortunately, at this point, we still don't have access to all our content, which is why you will probably see a higher amount of requests sort of being failed. We still don't have any access to our third-party digital content, which we used so that we can deliver items from third party. So we are relying on our hard copy collection at this time. We are working on resolving that, but it is going to take quite some time. Due to the cyber attack, we also lost all access to our high density buildings, so the robot buildings. If anybody's ever been to Boston Spa, the robot buildings, we lost access to all those because they were all networked. So it's great having a system where the robot knows where everything is, but if the robot can't work, we can't access the items. We are working on this and we are on track to access the material very, very soon. So for any material that is held within that building, we are now asking you to reapply in 4 weeks for this material, and we are starting now to be able to deliver some items. So you will see an increase in what we can deliver. And we're also working on opening up our London collections, which again you will see an increase in the amount of content that we can actually provide. And that is all I have to say at the moment. So I put questions. I don't know whether you want to do questions now or just leave them all to the end. I'm happy.
Thank you, Jo. I don't think there's anything immediately in the chat, but I'm very sure that people will have questions. Pop them in the chat and we'll pick them up at the end, I think is probably best. So thank you very much. That was really interesting. Some things that I didn't know either. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, let me pop in to share my screen. Is that share? I can no longer see anything, so please tell me if that's
Yes.
if that's working. Thank you. Brilliant. Great. So let's first talk about things that have been recently released. And following on from Joe, first up is EHESS. So obviously at the beginning of this month, since our last webinar, we have gone live with the new EHESS interim process. I'm no longer clicking through slides. Why not? There we go. So I'm not going to go through the system again. We did that last month. It was just before we released, so nothing's changed. If you missed that and you want to see it, please go onto the CLA website and look for the July webinar. There's a full walkthrough there. I thought now it might be interesting to look at some sort of key numbers since, well, this is as of Tuesday, of orders to date. So so far we've had 502 EHESS orders. You'll see actually almost half of those were unable to be fulfilled for some of the reasons that Joe was talking about. Hopefully that will start to increase, but I think it's worth, just reiterating that anything from a digital source is unable to be accessed at the moment. And at the moment, so some of these buildings are offline for now, but hopefully coming soon. You can see the numbers there. So about 25% are now all the way through and available to you to use. There's a few 11% sitting with you to review. We've had some that are still, then the 29 or 6% were, as of Tuesday, still with us and the British Library to process. I do like numbers, so hopefully just a little bit of an insight. I did think it was worth talking about the permissions a little bit, because we've had a few people say, oh, but this is available on check permissions, so why can't I get it from EHESS? So I thought we'd just quickly go through what each of them do. So check permissions will tell you what you can do with the content that you own under the CLA license. So once you get it from EHESS, are you going to be able to use it? The British Library and the EHESS service is a different set of things. This is about what permissions do they have to supply a document to you in the first place. So they're very different things. Unfortunately, we don't have a way of making the second set available publicly. Particularly overseas publications, there can be a real difference. So what we suggest in the user guidance for the license is that you do check permissions to make sure you're going to be able to share the extract once it's supplied under EHESS. So yes, we do suggest you check it, but that doesn't tell you whether they're going to be able to get it to you. And in fact, the only way to do that is just to submit a request and see if it's able to be supplied. Obviously, when we had the automated system, that would come back immediately, so it was kind of easier to tell. Now there's a bit of a lag, but that is really the only way to tell. So sorry about that, but for the time being, that is the case. Pricing, so we talked about the price cap of £40 for copyright fee paid. We have been reviewing that as well with the British Library. Did we set that about right? So you can see again here some numbers. So these are all of the resolved requests, the ones that are not still sitting with us, I guess. And you can see that we had 52 that were over the price cap, and only one of those were did you come back and say, actually, no, that's too expensive. We don't want to go ahead. The reason for putting it in was so that the British Library didn't have to come back to you for every single request, because it would just take too much time. They've ended up having to do that for about 11% of requests, which is completely within the realm of what we thought would be achievable. So when we reviewed the service with the British Library last week, we reviewed all of these kind of decisions that we'd taken ahead of time. So first of all, the timing, 4 working days. I mean, Joe's actually already talked about this. we do think this is right. I should acknowledge that we had some teething issues on our side. We did have some. What we discovered was that if things were coming in from an inbox to our help desk at great speed, so a lot per hour, then the system assumed it was spam and auto moved it into a separate folder, and we just had no idea that that was the case until about 10 days into it. So there were some things that sat for a while, and I'm very sorry. We just didn't know. Anyway, we've now resolved it. We're getting everything, so we shouldn't have these lags. And we do think that this is achievable. Price cap, as I've just talked about, we think this is fine, so the appropriate cap for now. Again, we can review it down the line. It's just a setting in the system, so if it does become problematic either for you or for the British Library, we can adjust it. And the final decision that we made ahead of time was scan resolution. So Joe's talked about setting up the scanners from scratch. We had actually been having conversations beforehand based on feedback from some institutions that the scan resolution was too low. Now, it was set as it was initially, I think, it was set as it was initially because the focus was on file size. And in 2015-16, when it was being planned, that was the priority. But now the requirements for accessibility have sort of overtaken the requirements for file size. And so we took the decision to supply kind of full res files, and then you can compress as you need to, but you will then be able to apply any accessibility related changes that you want to. So we agreed that that's how we would set it up for the beginning of this service. And we're now at the point where I think it makes sense to review that. So I have put together a really little poll, and I'd be grateful if you could actually, Stephen, can I ask you to scoop up that link and pop it in the chat, please? I'd be very grateful if you could either use a QR code or the link that I hope Stephen's about to put in the chat, and just give me your thoughts on this. Essentially, are the files working for you? Are they too big? Are they too small? Do you actually not really mind either way? And how do they compare to the previous service? Do you think they're better now? Actually, have they got worse? Or perhaps you hadn't even noticed, in which case it's fine. And then there's a spot for, if there's anything else you want to tell us about the scans that are coming through. And then based on your responses, we'll look at the answers and then take a view as to whether we need to adjust again. So before we had quite low resolution, now we have very high. Which one's right, or is it somewhere in between? I'll leave this poll open for a week or so, maybe 10 days, maybe, to give you and anyone who missed the live session time to respond. Good, so that was EHESS. The other thing that we released at the same time was a tweak to the journal extract. So this was something that changed in the license. Just to go over it again, I should have updated this. It's no longer current. The previous license had 1 article per journal issue per course. The new one has 2. So the DCS pop-up, when the extent limits pop up, it used to say you need to confirm that this is within limits when you're applying a second article for an ISSN, and now it's going to be on the 3rd. So last month we looked at this. So the first one will look like this, second one looks like this, and third one looks like this. It's now live, so I can show you what it looks like in person. Obviously, I don't actually create requests this fast. I have sped up this part of the footage a little bit. But once you apply a course, it's going to come in, and the first one will, there we go, tell you, no, you're fine, no extracts, so your extent limit's all right. Then when you go in and create a second article from the same ISSN, and obviously applying it to the same course. So the second one is now always going to be okay. So the second one, you'll get a green tick, but it will tell you that you've already got 1 item. And then finally, from third and subsequent requests, We don't know if they're from the same issue, so you need to confirm that for us. So you'll get the warning, and then if it is from different issues, different volumes, then you can just confirm it's within the limit and you'll be able to proceed. So that's now live. We've also just made a few bug fixes. I'll run through those really quickly. The extent limit I just talked about, we actually then started getting an error for second extracts in books, even when it was below 10%. So I don't know why that wasn't picked up in testing. We need to look at our algorithm for that. But anyway, it's now been fixed, and that should be working fine again. We had a bug where born digital extracts were not always, but sometimes not generating. Again, that's now been fixed. So if you do find one that won't generate, please let us know, because it's probably an issue with the PDF, and we'll then go back to the publisher and look at that. Completed request page. Yeah, we had a couple of HEIs say that the completed request page was not loading, basically. That's been resolved, so hopefully you won't hit that again. LMS integration, so the library, so that's the ownership check. Those of you with OCLC, it was returning a not found status even when you did have it. So that has now been resolved. There was an issue with an additional, anyway, there was a misplaced slash that appeared mysteriously. And those of you with Koha, again, the connection was failing. We actually don't know what the root of that was, but it was solved on the Koha side. So they've fixed that, and that's up and running again. Finally, yes, we had a couple of instances. This is not really a bug as such, but we had a couple of instances where the support team deleted a whole request rather than just a scan attached to a request. So this is based on, if you get down to the content section and you hit the delete scan button, if it's got a if there's a scan attached to it, then you sometimes have to request that the support team do the deleting for you. Unfortunately, a couple of times they've deleted the request rather than the scan. And when we looked at it, we realized that it was quite a misleading message that comes through to us. So we've just updated the wording to say not delete request in the heading, but delete content request, so that's going to be clear. So that shouldn't happen again as well. Next, now I didn't put a slide in, but it's just occurred to me I perhaps should have, just to let you know that we're in the process of planning the next Born Digital load. Hopefully we'll get it in September, depending on how long it takes to kind of put all the metadata together. It may push just into October, but it should be September. Again, we've got about 12,000 titles coming. For the first time, we've got some from Elsevier and from BSI, British Standards Institute, I think. So there'll be additional titles in Born Digital coming soon. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, yes, right. This is a request to you. They'll be coming via email. But essentially, as part of a kind of regular security check, the IT team are carrying out just a kind of who has access to our systems, and they're looking at the DCS now. So over the next week or so, if you're a primary contact, you'll be receiving an email from Stephen, either this Stephen or other Stephen, that will include the list of users that you have for your institution in the DCS. We're going to ask you to just review the list and look at who should be removed. You know, maybe they've left your institution, or maybe they've moved role. So who do you think, is there anyone on the list that really we should be deleting? And then if you can just go in and delete them in the DCS and confirm that you've done that, then that's great. I mean, you added them, you have access to all of them, so it very much is in your control, but we'd just like to make sure that there's nobody who has access who shouldn't. If for some reason you're not going to be able to delete them yourself, you can let us know who in the list we should take away, and we can do that for you. I should say this will include DCS users, so library users and lecturers, because they're in the kind of main system, in the main spreadsheet. If you use manual authentication, so that's where you put the student emails in and then they can log in to access content, do review those in the DCS as well. Is there anyone there who perhaps has got to the end of the course and left? Good. So that's coming soon. For those of you who have a Leganto integration, just a heads up that we've discovered, working with a couple of specific HEIs and trying to troubleshoot things that they've raised, we've finally got to the root of some of the things niggles that have been coming up for quite a while with syncing, and particularly with historic requests, so in previous academic years, where links aren't behaving as we would expect them to. We finally discovered why. Basically, Leganto are going to need to make a little tweak to their API calls and use a different API call to get the information that they need. But they now know why it's not doing what we think it should, and they're on it and will fix it. At the moment, it's fairly new. This is just sort of last week, so we don't have firm timing yet. But just a kind of heads up that this is coming for Leganto users. And next, I think finally for this section, we've been looking at the DCS interface, and I actually had a bit of a UX review, and I've got a couple of specific questions for you. Again, it's another poll, so Stephen, if you can do that, link in the chat, and then there's also a QR code here. I just want to ask you about a couple of things. One is around the term academic year, because as more and more kind of non-standard courses get put into the DCS, I think the term academic year is potentially confusing. It kind of means slightly different things to different people. So I was looking at changing it within our context to the license year. In other words, the kind of administrative year for the DCS and the CLA. So that would be it is from the 1st of October to the 31st of July. So changing the terminology, and then it doesn't clash with your sense of an academic year for a course. So I just want to ask you about that. And then I have a question about the filters. So we added filters to the active and completed requests recently. I'd just like to get a sense of how well they're working. Is there a better, smoother way to do it? And then is there anything else that you think we should look at specifically around the kind of interface? So I would love to get your thoughts, your feedback on that. Okay, that is all the input for now. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we can look at questions. Oh,
so we have
okay.
some in the chat.
I will sort those
all right.
links. In the meantime, there's a question. I was wondering if there's any specification of the scans provided via EHESS. Ah, okay. That's probably for Joe at this point. What is the... Yeah, do you have a spec for the scans? And in the meantime, I'm going to go and check my links.
I will let you know. I'll have to find that out, because I'm not sure what the new scanners are actually working on. But I'll find that out and I'll let you know, and it can be added to the Q&A.
Yeah, that sounds good. Right, I had put a limit on who can respond to that, so silly me. There's that poll again. I think one of them definitely was... Oh, no, hang on, that's probably giving you... No. That's not very helpful. Let me just delete that and start again. Right, we've got another question here about accessibility. At the University of Sussex, we're currently having a review of the accessibility of our digitizations. We currently OCR PDFs in Acrobat. before uploading to the DCS, but we're reviewing whether we can activate more accessibility features and enhance the scans using a wizard so that paragraphs and headings are tagged before uploading. Great. What do other people do? Could there be an additional feature to indicate accessibility other than just OCR option? Okay. I'll pick up the second point later. The first point, I would like to open to the floor. Does anybody want to comment? Stephen, would you mind just looking at the responses as they come in while I go and sort out my link again?
Yep. So we had a response from Miglena saying, in ULA, we're reviewing the DCS recommendation for scan quality, but definitely a lot more work is expected in accessibility.
That's better.
Do we have any other input on this one?
I think it's worth just, I can't remember the months now. We had a bit of an accessibility series a little while ago, and we had fantastic presentations from various people. I'm struggling to match names and HEIs in my head, so I'll have to double check before I announce. But we've got, again, we should be able to refer back to the recordings of these sessions. We had, no, I don't want to, I'm going to get the wrong HEIs with, I'm going to match Sean with, far better if I double check before I say who it was, but exactly, Caroline and Sean and we had some extremely useful presentations covering Abby Fine and Acrobat and kind of what people do. It was great. Adobe, and then auto tag them. So you can auto tag in Adobe. And then Rona saying we're currently implementing a new Bookeye scanner and taking time to review accessibility. Going to be using Abby Fine. Right. So let me pick up in the meantime the other half of the question from Catherine. A feature in the DCS when uploading a PDF to indicate accessibility. Yes, we are going to add that. It won't be immediate, but it will be coming. Yes, we're going to add indications for, is it tagged for reflow and does it have alt text? So that will be made visible. The idea at the moment is that there'll be an indication in the same way that there is for OCR, but then there'll also be a little kind of information area so that if you want to clarify exactly what you've done or sort of how detailed the tagging, etc. is, then you can add little notes for yourself or for other HEIs as well. Varying levels of accessibility work from Miglena, depending on how much is coming through. Louise, Bookeye scanner as well. Would love some guidelines on which accessibility features to implement. Currently, we only OCR. Okay. Maybe we should have another session on accessibility. If we do, what would the focus be? Maybe we run a webinar where we could either look at focusing on specific tools, so Abby Fine, and this is how you use it, or we could have a focus on. We could almost have a workshop where we use, rather than the webinar version of Teams where people are muted, we could we could have a kind of workshop where we work together on some guidelines. Or we could do more of the sorts of things that we did before, and have more demos from people. And in that case, who would like to come and talk? Miglaine has put a link to the guidelines that we do have, so thank you very much for that. Okay. Are there any questions? I mean, we're here every week, but Joe is a special guest. Is there anything that you'd like to ask of Joe and the British Library while she's here? Demos, okay. Okay. In that case, I think we're drawing to a close. Still opportunity to ask questions if you'd like to. But as I sum up, there are now these 2 links that I would be very grateful for some feedback on. We'll send those round as we send round the notes from the session. Thank you very, very much to Joe for coming and talking. I think, while people might not have had lots of questions, it's really great to hear from you, so hugely appreciated. Thank you. And finally, noted on accessibility. As I say, if anybody would like to come and share what they do, please let me know. We'd be delighted to have you come and talk either next time in September or later on in the autumn. As I think about it, the last Thursday of the month next month, I'm going to be on holiday, so we might actually tweak the timing slightly out of normal. Now, we've had a link question from Susan. Hi, Joe. If something's rejected for EHESS, is it worth contacting the BL regularly to see if they become available?
Yeah, I think it would depend why we've rejected it, obviously. But yes, yeah, I mean, we are getting more content coming online all the time. If it's a licensing thing, yeah, it's always worth, even if you're not sure, just drop an email to customer@bl.uk and ask them, and we can have a look at it for you. But it would be worth checking, as we are hoping to open the content up a lot more as we go forward.
Great, that's useful, thank you. Any more for any more? Going once? Going twice? Type fast if you do. Okay, great. Well, thank you again, Joe, and thank you, Stephen. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month, whenever it happens to be. Cheers then. Bye.